Shoulder pain. So you want to know how to fix upper cross syndrome? Well, today is episode 2. If you missed yesterday's video, I'll link it in the end of this video. Today we're going to go out on the gym floor. We're going to cover 3 things. First and foremost, Rad's going to talk about the importance of warm-up and how your warm-up should adapt as you age. Then we're going to go out and we're going to talk about body positioning and best practices when you're doing bench press. And then finally, we're going to wrap this up with tools, tips, and the best strategies for mobilization and also strength training to overcome upper cross syndrome. All that and more coming up right after this.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. This is my brother Yanni Burmeister, and we are the co-founders of Unity Gym and the co-creators of the Foundation Movement System, where we teach you how to nourish and move instead of diet and exercise. And you probably heard from Yanni's intro, we've got some serious man flu going on around Unity Gym right now, so please excuse his croaky voice. And sadly for Yanni, he is going to be doing most of the talking today, so it's going to be, we're going to do the best we can. I'm going to kick this off by talking about, so this is following on this episode. If you didn't watch yesterday's episode, we've had a lot of questions lately about upper cross syndrome. And upper cross syndrome is a fancy physio way of basically talking about the relationship between tight internal rotators of the shoulders and protractors of the scapula versus weak retractors of the scapula, okay?
And external rotators.
And external rotators and internal rotators, okay? So tight internal rotators and protractors versus weak external rotators and retractors, okay? So it's like it's a relationship between those two things. And it's something that's really, really common in modern day people that work at a desk, because what do we do at a desk all day long? We do this. So it's a really, really common thing. And if you've got it and you're suffering from it, exercise is going to hurt. When you do upper body strength training movements, it's going to hurt. Standing up and getting out of your posture in the desk is going to hurt. Sitting for too long at a desk is going to hurt. You're going to experience a lot of pain, and it leads on to a lot of things. So if you didn't watch yesterday's episode, watch that, because that's the real lead into this, and we made this a 2-parter because we got to a point in yesterday's episode where we just couldn't fit it all in. So what I'm going to talk about now is warming up, and one of the main reasons as to why, the people that are asking these questions range from their 20s to their 40s. So we're getting people from a wide variety, a wide age demographic.
Even 50s. I had a really great email from a guy in his mid-50s yesterday.
Yep, there you go. So a lot of people in a lot of different ages are suffering from this. Genetics plays a part in it, but it's a much smaller part though. Like there's a very small amount of people that would have a genetic defect that are causing this. It's much more to do with environment, which means it's the way that you are living your life and the way that your body is adapting to your environment, which is totally in your control. That's the good thing about it. You can influence this and control it yourself. That's the best thing about our bodies. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the importance of warming up. The older you get, the more important warm-ups are, but that doesn't mean it's any less important for someone who's 20 years old than it is for someone who's 50 years old. In our experience, the majority of injuries come from not warming up properly. It's if you warm up properly, and we even got that from Ian King, didn't we? He said that to us, didn't he? Yeah. So Ian King is a strength and conditioning coach for the Australian Olympic team, one of the most decorated, most accomplished strength and conditioning coaches in the world. And we were lucky enough to work with him face to face, and he told us that the only time his athletes ever really get injured is when they don't warm up properly. When they warm up properly and they have an equal focus on strength and flexibility, they don't get injured. So why warm up? What's the point of warming up? There's so many things that go on in a warm-up, and I'm going to take you through the key components of a warm-up. The first thing is to start with high-intensity cardiovascular training for about a minute. So there's some really good exercises, but basically it's what you can do within your limitations that aren't going to cause any injuries based on your conditions. So we love burpees and horizontal running. And
I want to jump in because we don't have time for you to take them through our entire warm-up, but what I want you to do is just explain what needs to occur for
in a warm-up.
For a good warm-up. Okay. If you guys want to know a warm-up. We've done heaps of videos on this. We have like entire courses on warming up, but it would be too long to go through right now because we've got a lot to do to get out on the gym floor, and I want to crack into that as quick as possible.
All right, so I'll be quick then. So a good warm-up should elevate your heart rate so that you get blood pumping to the muscles, and it also lubricates the synovial fluid, so it makes it more, is it more viscous? Is that the word?
It increases the viscosity or lowers the viscosity of the synovial fluid, but
which makes it less like a jelly and more like a liquid.
Yeah, it saturates the joints.
And that lubricates the joints. Like that's what sits between the cartilage, so that cartilage isn't rubbing on cartilage. It's like the oil in a motor. It also increases strength, but a good warm-up will increase your strength potential because it switches on your central nervous system and increases the cross-bridge coupling, so the muscle fibers connecting to each other to create faster muscle contractions, so it increases your strength, and it reduces your risk of injury because of all of these things.
And that's what a good warm-up should do. So it needs to be specific to the day's exercise, but it also shouldn't carry on and interfere with the day's exercise. A warm-up shouldn't fatigue you at all.
Yeah, you shouldn't be fatigued at the end of a warm-up.
But the point that I want Rad to drive home is that it needs to adapt as your body ages, because a warm-up should actually increase in time as you get older, not decrease in time as you get older. You know?
And warm-ups are a kind of a specific thing as well. Like, we have a general warm-up format that we do, but everybody as an individual has things that they need to do. Like, I've got problems in my lower back that I've had for a long time, and I need to put care into my lower back every day that Yanni doesn't need to, you know. And Yanni's got issues going on in his upper back and his shoulders that he needs to take care of every day that I don't need to. So there's elements of a warm-up that are individual and that you need to understand that for yourself. And if you skip them, and if you know that this is what you normally do for a warm-up, but then you come into, I would argue that if you've only got half an hour to work out and you think, oh shit, I'm just going to jump in and do some shit, what I would do is I would warm up and then do 10 or 15 minutes of working out.
Yeah.
That's going to be better for you than going, oh, I don't have time to warm up, I'm just going to try and do 5 sets of bench and bent over row today because it's my bent arm strength day. That's going to be so much worse for you. And the reason why is because you're going to injure yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you got some mileage on the tyres, guys. Rad and I'm 39, Rad's 41. You know, to give you an example, to create some context here, before a show, I like to do 10 reps of something, 10 push-ups, 10 chin-ups, 10 squats, whatever it is, just to fire myself up, fire my central nervous system up. Today, because I couldn't be bothered doing anything else, I just jumped up on the bar and went to do 10 pull-ups. And I got shoulder pain in my shoulder. Why? Because I've done nothing else except train a client and sit in my chair. I'm not warmed up. And I have issues. I've got mileage on the tyres. Like I've put my body through hell over my life, and I need to warm up. You know, I'm 40 years old. Rad is the same. Like, you can't, and you get away with it when you're young. You get away with it in your 20s because you can bust into a gym and on many occasions you can work out and
you
not
get away
feel
with
pain,
it a lot of the time. But
yeah, you also get away with eating McDonald's every day too, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but it starts to stack up and it starts to hurt after a while. Anyone in their 40s and 50s will relate to that. All right, look, let's dive straight out onto the gym. I hope you get a little bit out of that the warm-up is so important. And I guarantee you, and I'm not trying to be condescending here, but 90% of the people watching this video won't warm up properly. You will not understand what a real true warm-up should look like, and you won't understand how to specify it for your training. So it's something that I think is really lacking in the industry. I used to think that just doing reps at a lighter weight was enough to warm up, you know, but it's not. It really isn't. And until you learn how to warm up properly, you're probably going to be at greater risk of injury. Anyway, let's hit the gym floor. So I'm going to bring my notes just in case I stuff this up. Richie, just make sure you turn my mic up a lot, because I'm not going to be able to talk very loud. Okay. Yeah, just do it quickly. It's all right. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do, which I promised yesterday, was that we're going to talk about pressing setup, because this is an area where a lot of people can get a very big bang for their buck level up to protect shoulder. Because, you know, the last thing we want to do when we're injured is stop training. And if you're experiencing pain in the shoulder when you're bench pressing, which is a couple of the guys, Craig, one of them yesterday, had suggested, there are a few things that you can do just in the body positioning of your setup that may change the game for you and may allow you to continue pressing. So the first one is I want to get Rad in on the bench press. Now, most people when they bench press, they press with a flat spine, a neutral spine. Surprisingly, and we even get taught that, but surprisingly, you're better off arching your back and adopting what's referred to as a powerlifting setup in the bench press. And the reason for that is because it protects the shoulders. Powerlifters are amazing at moving load, and through literally hundreds of years of doing it, they have narrowed it down to a fine art of how to move maximal load with minimal risk of injury. That's what powerlifting's about. It's not about recruiting the most maximal amount of muscle tissue, because that would fatigue you and make it less advantageous like bodybuilders. Powerlifters want to move as much load as possible. So there are a lot of things that we can learn from their setup because they're minimizing risk injury to maximize load. The first one I like to do, and we teach this across the board at Unity Gym, because it develops the strongest and most powerful bench press, and that is a really great way of developing strength in the upper body. It's one of the best bang for your buck upper body movements. So we adopted the powerlifting setup because of a good friend of mine, Sebastian Oreb, Australian strength coach, who's the strength coach to Hap Thor Bjornsson, the strongest man in the world currently. And this is how he taught us how to bench, and it served us well. So jump in. What Rad's going to do is, first of all, you see he approaches the bench from the top because that allows him to position his shoulders here in a more advantageous way. The first thing I want you to understand is that he has locked his shoulders into retraction and depression. So his scapula are back and down as hard as he can get them. It helps to have a wider bench, guys. A skinnier bench, you're going to struggle to get your scapula locked in. And remember, the shoulder inherently is a loose joint. Is what the humerus attaches to, and the scapula slides around on your rib cage. So without making this rigidity or creating this rigidity, naturally your joint, your shoulder joint, the whole capsule is completely vulnerable to injury. When we start to lift super heavy loads here, you need to create stability using that scapular position. So we lock the scapula down and back. Then we're going to arch the back as much as we can. We don't want the glutes to lift off. We want glutes still contacting the bench. But this is going to put a little bit of stress and strain into your lower back, and it will take a little bit of practice to get used to. You won't be able to arch as much as Rad is here straight away. But what that arch does is it actually brings the latissimus dorsi, the lat muscles, into the movement. Now remember, we spoke yesterday, the lats are an internal rotator. So they like to work with the pecs. The pecs, the lats, and the biceps all internally rotate and bring that arm, adduct the arm, the shoulder. So this is a system of muscles that we want working together, and it's going to improve your bench press. So the last thing I want you to look at is Rad's foot position. He's brought his feet back as far as he can with still keeping his butt on the bench and his feet contacting the ground. His heels are elevated substantially, and I want you to do that. At this point, he's got his feet in nice and tight to the bench, so his feet are in tight. And when he presses the bar, he's actually going to put downward pressure on his heels. And what that does is, putting downward pressure on the heels drives up the recruitment of his hamstrings and his glutes. When the glutes are on, the lower back will be strong, okay? And that's going to help protect and stabilize his lower back. So pressing the feet down, hamstrings locked on, lower back is locked on, lats are locked on because he's depressing the scapula. He's ready to bench press now. Now there should be zero movement in the shoulders because remember, we're creating rigidity. Just do a few reps. Nice and slow down, touching the bar on his chest. There is zero movement happening in his scapula. We don't want movement in the scapula at this point. We got a very, very heavy weight here exerting force on a centrifugal downward motion on his shoulders. If the shoulder is loose and moving around, you're going to mess it up and cause yourself an injury. Now this is why we only introduce barbells in phase 4 of our program after 16 weeks, because 18 weeks, because we've spent a hell of a lot of time developing strength in the scapular movers so that our guys, when they get to this point, have the strength and ability to create rigidity in the scapula. You've got to be able to move your scapula around really well, and that takes a little bit of time and it takes strength, and we do that with remedial movements like traps 3 raises and Powell raises, and we do it with overhead shrugging with the barbell, and we do it with hanging scapular pull-ins and things like that. So we're developing strength in these muscle systems. So by the time we get to the barbell, we're really, really strong and we can create that rigidity. But this will completely revolutionize the way you guys press. If you've never done this before, if you've never tried this setup before, be kind on your lower back, because you will, especially if you're not very strong in the core, you'll spasm in the lower back initially when you try to create enough of an arch. But I can tell you, I guarantee you, the biggest bench pressers in the world do it like this, and they do it like this for a reason. You can learn from their experiences, mistakes, trials and tribulations. Let's jump up and we'll move to some of the best tips, tools and practices to open up the shoulders. Now, depending on the severity of your shoulder injury, there is nothing that beats hanging. Just simple hanging from the bar is going to decompress your spine and your shoulders in a way that nothing else will. Obviously, if you've got really severe shoulder problems, you have to regress this. And there's ways that you can do that by keeping your feet on the floor, or you can go to
Doing it actively as a regression.
you can do it on an incline. So I'm not all the way in there now, and slowly work up to doing it by a full hang. You can widen the grip on an incline. That's the easiest way to do it to start with, and then slowly progress to being under the bar, and then slowly progress to having your hands nice and close together, with the goal of being able to dead hang with the hands together. You can then progress to doing single arm hanging drills. And single arm hanging drills, you can hang full body weight, or you can support yourself and do rotational drills. These are like, nothing comes close to the hanging decompression. But there are a couple of other tools that we use that are super, super effective. And I honestly, I dare say, I've got this short one. You don't really need this because we're going to use the other one. Can you just do a long lay on here? Is that all right for your shoulder? Rad's actually got quite a bad slap tear in his shoulder that he did doing calisthenics. So I got to make sure that he's okay doing these drills. So this is the first and most gentle shoulder drill that we use. Now, someone with really compromised posture, upper cross syndrome, we actually get them to start with their hands down beside them like this. And the goal is to eventually get the hands up above the head, and then the last position is with the arm at a right angle, as though you were going to do a overhead press, okay? So that's the mobility drill. Now we want to match that with, that's the flexibility drill. Now we want to match that with a strength drill to emphasize the mobility. We'll do a W wall slide. So we do what's called a W wall slide here, which is where Rad is up against the wall as flat as he can. You can see here this print on his chest is where Rad has been massaging and mobbing to open up the pec major and minor to work his shoulder. Okay, so what Rad's doing here is he's got a neutral spine. The goal is that he keeps his forearms and his spine completely pressed against the wall. And he wants to basically do a behind the head barbell press with his arms, but without losing any of that contact point. So if you come sideways, or even just go this side, Richie, and get in there really close and have a look, you can see that his back is perfectly pressed against the wall, and his forearms are perfectly pressed against the wall. He only moves as far as he can, keeping that pressed against the wall. The way you can deload this is by using the thumb here, and that will obviously keep a nice neutral position, but the idea is to keep it consistent. You're going to find that when you hit your limitation, the arms are going to move around, and that's what we want to fight against. And then we can progress this movement by doing a face down dowel rod movement, where we do exactly the same movement, but now we lie face down and we hold a dowel rod in front of the body. Now, we won't demonstrate that. I don't think it's necessary. Now I want to show you the progression of the mobility here, and just do a chest drape. This is called a chest drape on the foam roller. And now what Rad's going to do is try to keep his hips and bum on the ground. This is a fantastic drill to do to help you with the arch of your bench press. So he's aiming to keep the hips on the floor like you do with your glutes on the bench, and he's just draping over. Now obviously this is a lot more aggressive than the long lay on the foam roller that we showed first up, but it's something that you can progress to. And remember guys, we spoke about this in an earlier video. This is a topic that we cover heavily in our Strength Essentials course. Progressive overload is essential for progress. So if you learn one exercise and then just do that forever, you'll plateau. So you want to know and understand how to progress these movements. And this is the key to our UMS system, our Unified Movement System. Every 6 weeks, the guys are progressing their movements, but that's on a macro level to create more complexity in the workout. On a micro level, they're progressing their load and their overload parameters inside those workouts. And every week, every microcycle, there's a different goal and different overload parameters. So, you know, you need to understand how to progressively overload your body. And that's one of the big problems and why people don't rehab, is because they get a rehab exercise from their physio, like we spoke about yesterday. They repeat that until the pain goes, and then they try to jump back to where they were 6 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago when they were doing heavy lifts and they busted their shoulder, and there's no progressive overload in between. And that's why we don't rehab. We keep injuring ourselves and stay on this perpetual cycle. Now, the last progression and the most aggressive for upper cross syndrome in the mobility is using what's called back balls. And these back balls, I won't demonstrate it, but it basically goes on the spine from the 12th rib up to the shoulders. We've used these heaps. There's 2 different sizes here. You pick these up on eBay. I can link them in the description of the video once I edit it after this. And they're really, really good. This is like, for me, overcoming my upper cross syndrome, this was the breakthrough. Combined with these sorts of drills, this was the breakthrough. Now you'll notice nothing here in the rehab side of things includes massive lifting. Because if you've got compromised posture, like if your upper cross syndrome is so bad that it's causing shoulder impingement, and you're warming up properly and still getting into the workout and experiencing pain, chances are, guys, that you've got to give up bench press for a while, and you've got to sort out these postural issues. Because if you don't, you're going to end up completely perforating and destroying tendons like the supraspinatus in the rotator cuff, the infra and teres minor, these little tendons that are trying to hold on to your joint and localize it. They're producing what's referred to as a force coupling around the head of the humerus to try and stabilize and localize that joint. If they're pulled out of their home where they're meant to be sitting and living, and then rubbing up and jammed up against all of the bone structures in your shoulder, which is what happens, you know, there's no way that you're going to not experience injury and pain. So you've got to get the shoulders setting right. You've got to get all that happening, and that comes from a variety of different things, as we spoke about yesterday. It's never just one thing. You know, I can massage my pecs till the cows come home in here, releasing my pec minor, which is a fantastic, fantastic thing to do. But unless I learn to retract my scapula and I get that control in the scapular retractors, I decompress my shoulders in the hanging, and I put my spine and thoracic spine into extension on a daily basis, this is going to do nothing. It's going to do nothing. It's just going to put a nice print on the front of your chest like Rad had. You have to come at it from all different angles. You can't just do one thing. The answer to your problem is not going to be one retraction exercise and one massage exercise. You know, you've got to hit it from different angles. You've got to mobilize using these great tools, massage using massage balls and trigger point therapy, myofascial release using the foam rollers and the massage balls. Then you've got to strengthen. And you've got to learn to retract the scapula, doing proper exercises, proper strength and conditioning. So let's take it inside, and Rad's got to jump on a meeting with the USA. He's on a call. Okay, so purposes of this series is not to overwhelm you guys. I want to give you some actionable things that you can do. But, you know, as I said in yesterday's video, in episode 1 of this video, my upper cross syndrome was so bad. It was so bad that it destroyed my left shoulder. And it was self-inflicted. It was the way I was behaving. It was my environment. I was boxing. I was weightlifting in a manner that was just stimulating the internal rotators, tightening everything up. I didn't stretch. I didn't do any flexibility training. It was all strength training and then speed and power and things specific to my boxing. And I also didn't nourish my body in a manner that would promote healing and promote longevity. You know, because I exercised so hard and so frequently, I could eat whatever I wanted and stay lean. And I just tended to put shit into my body. I put junk food into my body and I ate all the time. You know, and our body, we know now that our body doesn't really get on with healing until we abstain from food. And that needs to be more than 8 hours a night. It needs to be, you know, 10 to 15 hours a day of abstinence from food to properly heal your body. And that sort of comes into all the circadian health and circadian rhythm and the new research on time-restricted eating that's being done. Now, I dare say that if you're training to a high degree and you're not focused on what you're putting into your body, the quality of the calories and nutrients, and also the timing of the calories and nutrients to give your body a decent amount of time every 24-hour period to heal itself and to get on with that, you know, no amount of this sort of exercise is going to work eventually. Eventually something's going to break down. You know, this might have a big input and influence initially, and then 5 years in the future, you're going to find that things start to reoccur again and you're going to have to level up again. So the purposes of this series and the concept of not compartmentalizing your body, compartmentalizing your goals and compartmentalizing your training is about, you know, adopting a holistic approach, strategizing everything in a way that is, you know, geared around performance and around supporting one another so that the exercise is done and then that's the stimulus and then the catalyst is the food that you eat and the timing of that food to support the exercise. If you want to know more about this stuff, guys, get into our movement tribe. Get involved in the flash sale that finishes tonight, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you will get a 30-day free trial of our online coaching program. And if not, we've got links in our About page, and I'll link stuff in our description that gives you a chance to dive into our ecosystem and really learn about how we do this and why we do it, because I can guarantee you that if you're not training from a holistic standpoint and you're not warming up properly, you're not eating properly, and you're not practicing a movement program that balances strength and flexibility, you're going to continue to run into problems. We're here to help. Shoot us emails and all of that, and comment, and I'll do my very best to get to everyone as quick as possible. Until next week, it's Friday here in Sydney, folks, so everyone have a great weekend, and for all of you new tribe members that have jumped on our Christmas in July flash sale, welcome. I can't wait to meet you all in the Movement Mastermind private Facebook group. Take care.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's the
far.
consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.